How will a post-COVID-19 world look like? I've asked that question to Sohail Inayatullah. He's a futurist. I did this interview with him from my home in Utrecht, and he was in Brisbane, Australia. The kind of questions that I asked here are listed. So this is the things that we discussed. First of all, I think it's important to understand what kind of futurist Sohail is. The secret sauce of his futurism is his causal layered analysis. And I do think it's important to have a deeper understanding of that method. He will describe 4 futures in this interview based on an article that he wrote together with Peter Black. The zombie apocalypse, the great despair, doesn't sound very good, does it? But there's also optimistic futures. Of course, I asked him the question, what can organizations do? How can they anticipate and where to start? That somewhere at the end, if you want to become a better futurist yourself, there's some advice that he will give right after that. And I've asked him, what kind of world will we live in 10 years? He was tempted to predict that future, but then he said to me, I will give you my favorite future. And that will be the end. 27 minutes introduction in how Sohail Inayatullah looks at the future. So next to me, from a distance, I would say, you're in Brisbane, Australia, Sohail.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm in Utrecht, and we are here to talk about your recent publication on 4 possible futures of a post-COVID-19 world. And we're anxious to know what these 4 possible futures are. But I also want to challenge you on the question, what kind of futurist are you?
Well, there's some futurists, they're engaged in prediction. Here's what will happen. And our view is that's one type, very popular in the 60s and 70s. Mm-hmm. Then there's a type who do scenarios, who say, well, we can't really predict because the world changes so quickly and we're complicit in that world, complexity. So they do scenarios, different futures. Our work is, yes, we look at scenarios, but we're always saying, what are the underlying narratives or myths or metaphors underneath it? So my context is, for about 18 years, I've been working with the Australia Biosecurity Group. And they're zoonotic experts, they're animal health scientists. And so I've been training them in future studies methods and also learning from them. So this article was with Dr. Peter Black, who is a veterinarian epidemiologist. So the first thing we looked at was, is this a total surprise? And of course it's not, because it was very clear to them zoonosis is possible when you go into wildlife areas, when you have wet markets, these type of things emerge.
That's where you say it's not a black swan. So people are saying this is a black swan, but you're saying it's not a black swan.
Yeah, predicting the date, predicting the impacts, that's a different effort. But no one I know in the biosecurity community is at all surprised. We've been waiting for this, we're expecting this. Figuring out what's going to happen next is always a challenge. Now, since we don't know what's going to happen next, there's choices to be made. So then it's very clear to develop alternative futures.
Mm-hmm.
So the 4 simple,
the 4. I was thinking about Bill Gates.
So
Bill Gates has his talk.
Speech a few years ago, the next pandemic.
You mentioned it. We had this talk, I think, right after 2008. Another crisis. We talked about what will happen after, and everybody was saying this is a game changer. And now when you look at all those people saying like Harari's, and this is the moment, everything will change. But from the crisis we've seen, not much has changed from my perspective, but maybe you have a different view on that.
No, I agree with you. The decision, this is the leadership decision. The decision in 2008 was save Wall Street or save Main Street, right? And he said, let's save Wall Street, and let's not worry about Main Street. And now here, they're saying very clearly, everyone has to be saved. You need to save small business. You have to save households. And of course, some people say, well, you need to save the big corporations as well, because they need to be ready to employ people. So this, to me, if we look at 4 circles, right? There's the economy circle, spirit circle, nature circle, and society circle. Mm-hmm. So GFC shrunk the economy. Everyone said, let's pause and speed up again. So here's the leadership. It's imagining a future where we know the next year is going to be spirit society, right? The spiritual part of who we are, the social part is important. Nature, in a way, is saying, if you abuse nature, here's what happens. So my vision for leadership is we take all four circles seriously: economy, spirit, society, and nature. Now, will we do so? That's the part we can't predict.
Okay, so to be clear, it's not the four futures that you presented. It's not a defined future. It's not a way of prediction. But at the other hand, there's value in it because it can be one of those four. But maybe you could help us first to explain what are the four futures that you envision, just as a short introduction. So a couple of words,
okay, so
the whole picture.
So scenario one is really what you get from the movies, right? If you look around, this is the feeling future. And the feeling future is really zombie apocalypse, right?
Sounds scary.
Something terrifying is saying every morning when people wake up, the first thing they used to think the first thing people used to wake up when they woke up in the morning was things to do list. Here's the 10 things I have to do today. Now people wake up, there's oh my God, what's happened to the world? There's a feeling of dread. If, Kierkegaard always talked about dread, angst. So this is the metaphor for me is zombie apocalypse. Okay. I can't control it. It's coming to get me. This could be a recession, could be a depression, could lead to the breakup of countries, could lead, clearly Mr. Trump knows that if the Dow is down, election time, he loses the election.
That's going to be the consequence, yeah.
He is and I think Modi has understood that as well. If I don't handle this, I won't be in power. So political leaders, for them, the zombie apocalypse is an electoral apocalypse.
Yeah.
For individuals, it's a feeling I don't have control of the world. So the future feels horrifying.
Okay, the other one, the second one, I like more. There's not a choice to make.
So
a lot of people.
Yeah. So the second one is, okay, let's look at some of the data. The data, as we've seen it so far, is pretty clear. The best piece I've seen is called the hammer and the dance. You need to have a pause. Every country has to pause, do tracing, keep people at home, all the best case evidence base of what we need to do. So in this pause, the next year is difficult. There's going to be a recession. Everything slows down. And then what one basketball player said, 2020 is canceled.
Yeah.
So let's not fight it, okay? So we're not going to travel. We're not going to do conferences. So then the question is, scenario two is, if this is the pause, what's the right thing to do individually? And what's the right thing for society to do? So then you think, okay, well, this is a time for spiritual pursuit. This is the time for community. This is a time for breathing. So all systems we know, if they go too fast, they get out of kilter. They're no longer sustainable. So nature or complexity forces the pendulum shift back. If you read Sorokin's work, it goes too extreme, then it comes back. So in this is the pause before we move forward. So the metaphor is almost you slow down to speed up later. It's a forced pause.
Yeah, but that's the confusing part. I understand the pause, but then you say it's fast forward again. So it's just a pause, is it?
Yeah. Now scenario three. So this is we slow down, but then in next year we go to business as usual.
Yeah.
Scenario three is no. This is a pivotal moment. This is saying we need to change. This is a global health awakening. This is the pause that changes who we are. It's not just about COVID-19. It's about climate change. It's about global inequity. So why don't we have a real global, WHO is doing brilliantly, but they don't have teeth, right? They can't force every country to do something.
No.
Why don't we have a global health organization with real teeth? Why don't we have an early preparation mechanism that we all have to listen to? So this scenario three is global health awakening. So this is personal. Each one of us says, wait a second, what am I doing that's right? Do I need to meditate more? Do I need to exercise more? Do more yoga? Do I need to stop eating meat? What personal changes do I have to have? And systemically, what changes do we need in the global health economy and in the global world economy to ensure the disasters that futurists talk about seem far, seem strange? This is saying, no, we're living in one. this is the chance to make the shift. This is not the big disaster that might happen 10 years from now. Here's a gift in the way from nature saying, if you don't shift, I'm going to screw you over.
Can you explain the role of technology? Because you specifically talk also about technology in this future.
I mean, technology is enabled in every future, but in this one in particular, AI doing prevention, AI connecting, the internet connecting everyone. So it's like physical, they're talking, keep a physical distance, but social connection. So in this future, we're using AI, startups, large companies to give us the information we need for prediction prevention. So to me, that I say it's it's going towards the 5P health model. So P1 is prevention, right? P2 is precision. I need data about me, you need data about you. P3 is partnership. We can't do this without everyone. P4 is participation, right? That every health actor has to participate in their health journey. Every health country has to participate in their health journey. And the fifth P is personalized medicine. Precision, personalized, prevention, partnership, participatory. So that's kind of a new model of global and personal health.
Well, in the same future, you talk about a concern, and Harari is also talking about he calls it under the skin surveillance. So there's a flip side of using technology in that way. So it's a sort of positive future, but there's also a concern.
In terms of what I'm seeing from a strict Western view of the individual as first, this is challenging it. This is saying we need to, if West, this is structural analysis, right? West is more individualistic. Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong, South Korea, PRC are more collectivist. And this saying, well, in a crisis, it's the collective that saves you. It's community that saves you. This is not a time of the individual Superman. This is a time of the group of heroes working together, and technology enables that. So my sense in scenario 3, because scenarios are possible futures. They're not ideal states. In scenario 3, clearly privacy becomes an issue, and to me, the pendulum shifts. But now that privacy is an issue if you don't trust the state. Mm-hmm. In Australia, when the Prime Minister made his pronouncement, no one believed him, they didn't trust him, so they bought toilet paper. That was their indicator, we don't trust the state to protect us. In other countries, the Prime Minister of Singapore came on and said, there's no need to panic. We will take care of you. Everyone take care of each other. So no one had a sense of loss of privacy. It was, this person is trustworthy, we trust the leader, we trust the state, let's take care of each other.
I think
so in scenario 3, it changes. And I don't know what the story is in where you are.
No, I think the Netherlands is sort of in between. We trust our Prime Minister, but
exactly
at the same time, we bought toilet paper.
Yeah, it was. Okay, so in the Arab world, it's called trust in Allah and tie your camel. So, trust the leader, but trust the leader, but wash your hands.
Wash your hands.
So scenario 3 is we slow down, not to speed up. We slow down to transform.
Yeah. The fourth one is called the Great Despair. Can you explain?
Yeah. This is where there's mutation. We actually don't succeed. The hammer we're trying doesn't work. It works for 3 months, virus comes back. Works again. It's not the science of it. It's the sense I can't control this future. And there's danger everywhere. So this is the Great Despair. So this goes on for many years. The stimulus packages we're seeing, they help, but then there's hyperinflation 3 years from now, right? So the troubles that start now don't go away for many years. And then we have nation states, they might split, they might fracture. This is the long difficulty.
Yeah, so you call it back to the Middle Ages.
Yeah, so the only conclusion is, well, I don't trust anyone, so we create the castles and walls. So this is, to avoid this scenario, the messaging of every leader has to be very clear. This is humanity is one, we're on the same boat, we're not going to fight each other, we have to change who we are. That's scenario 3.
Could we figure out together in this call how to get to the most positive future. I would say it's the global health awakening.
Yeah.
If so, what is needed? And I think this goes back to your CLA analysis. I see it as a sort of toolkit. I'm not sure whether you can talk about it as a toolkit, but could you help us explain by example, how do we get there? And how do you look at the 4 instruments of the CLA analysis of the futures?
So CLA tries to go deeper to the headline, but what's underneath the headline. So when I see some headlines blaming a particular community, their inner story, their system is xenophobic, their inner story is don't trust the other. So litany is the headline. Mm-hmm. So for some people, number of people dying, right? That's level 1 analysis. Number of people getting sick. System is basically the organization of it.
That's the second.
So which hospitals are we using? What's the medicine? What's the technology? What's the surveillance? Level 3 is the worldview. Here's how we see this as a community. Here's how we see the problem as a society. So the worldview is what differs. So the piece I'm working on now to explain this, the worldview changes your strategy. So let me give you 7 if you have a second. And that explains CLA in action, because the deeper part of CLA, the worldview is informed by a core narrative, a metaphor. So when we talked about this 12 years ago, we said, if you see the global financial crisis as merely a banking crisis, fix the banks. Yeah. If it's actually if it's actually a crisis of system failure, create equity. So in this case, if it's just a virus, then all we want is a cure and a vaccine. Problem solved. So the litany is virus, system is get the scientists involved, worldview, science and technology, metaphor is the new heroes, right?
Yeah.
The white coat save the day. But maybe this is not just a virus, it's about health policy. So if it's a health policy, then we listen to WHO, we do the tracing, we end the wet markets, we reduce consumption of wildlife, we create buffer zones between us and wildlife. Now we're saying it's not just a virus. It's a system of production that has created the problem. We have to change the system of production. So this is change what we eat, how we eat, and where we build. Now we need urban planners. It's not just doctors. I need urban planners with me to help me design cities. So now we've gone deeper, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you want to go...
Is there a deeper layer even? Is there a way to...
Yeah, well, a different narrative is geopolitical. So already there's a whole group of people sending out bots of misinformation. They don't see this as a virus issue or a health issue. This is a chance for a geopolitical advantage. Let me blame one country, let me spread misinformation, because this gives my country advantage. So for them, this is just a Cold War again. This is great. We can destabilize, we can win. So their metaphor is, last one wins. Last one standing wins. So this is now, then I ask, and then now narrative 4 is what we talked about, wellness. So the real narrative is, okay, this is the health awakening. What's the comorbidity factors? So we know one big comorbidity factor is pollution. It can't be just a vaccine and a cure. We have to change industrial production to reduce pollution. Pollution is one of the deeper causes of this issue. So how do we design, how we create economies where we're no longer polluting? This is challenging fossil fuel era. This is the solar energy. Yeah. So this is really a worldview shift. The metaphor here is green to the rescue.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things you talk about is culture eats strategy for breakfast. So how likely is it that we are creating this better future while at the same time there's culture?
So this is the tension, right? So we know we should end those type of markets, but there's a culture of, well, if I eat this type of food, it's going to make me healthier, right? So some people have that view. We know that's not backed by evidence base. So now there's the dance. So I know in China, they've said, we will ban all wet markets forever now. Now, the culture will try to come back. Here's where the system has to try to overwhelm the culture. But also you need the cultural shift. So the cultural shift here is, well, move from exotic animals to wellness. You don't need those animals to be well. Maybe you just need better tofu. Maybe you need better exercise, and we're going to make the cities greener. So this is when so this is the cultural part is crucial. Now, often when there's an external...
You're talking about specifically about the Chinese culture of the wet markets, as you call them, where diseases like corona start to get rid of that part of culture.
And so when I talk to my colleagues there, say, yes, we're very clear. We need to shift our diet. We need to shift how we talk about the future. We've been saying we're going to delay cleaning up. And now we're saying, oh my God, here's what it feels like to be in a clean, green city. Let's be part of the solution to the global climate change problem. So wellness and well-being now become not just, oh, it's an interesting idea, right? No, this is not an interesting idea. This is decisive in the world we get.
Yeah. Is there any advice to be given, looking at the strategy of those companies, to anticipate on one of those possible futures?
So there's two parts to it. Part one is exactly what you're saying. Every company needs to have an anticipatory dimension. How is the world changing? Can I detect the weak signals and do better? Part two, I never give particular advice. There's one company I was working with. They were in trouble. I said, what's your metaphor? He said, our metaphor is pummeled by the present. We're pummeled by the present. We can't keep up. We're always feeling every day is horrible. And they had good reason. They gave me all the reasons. So I said, well, what metaphor do you want? What's a better metaphor for you? And they said, a flock of eagles, having a big view, having detail, working together with our clients, with our stakeholders. Now, once they changed the narrative, they said everything changed in their world. Their company strategy changed. They're back to purpose. They're happier. They're more productive. Their stakeholders want them more. So one is anticipatory. Two, every company think, what's our core metaphor of who we are? Where do we want to be? What's our new metaphor? And if this is our new metaphor, what's our better strategy?
Should that be the starting point? Should you look at the situation and start thinking about what is your current metaphor and should be the future metaphor? Is that the starting point?
Yeah, I would start there. I mean, one of the things we try to do in this work, to get there, of course, you have to slow down. So there's a personal, I would say, meditative part, slowing the breathing down, getting calm. Everything's changing. Every day you're trying for 20 minutes or twice a day to slow yourself down. So the best boards I work with, they have a meditation group in the company. They find a way to do well-being. So meditation is foundational. Now the second part is, what's the use future? So I can't make a transition. When I was in Pakistan at a shopping center last month, and I knew, of course we all knew COVID-19 was coming, and I talked to the shopping center. They have a metal gate and they have 3 guards there. And I said, and they're protecting against the Taliban, right? And they have all these protections against Taliban bombings. And I looked at them, I said, you do know Corona doesn't care about metal gates. I said, you need to have a temperature check and a place to clean hands. And they looked at me. And then, so this was the use future responding to yesterday's threats. So every company, which is the use future that I'm doing today that doesn't work, but I keep on doing it. Once you've done those two things, the meditation part, the use future, then you say, what's my current metaphor? What's the better one?
My last question for you, Sohail. Maybe you remember when I once asked you, what should I do to become a better futurist? Your answer at that moment was, I should take psychotherapy. And you explained, you should learn more about yourself in order to understand your prediction. So what do you have to say to all these people who are looking and staring into the future? Because we're all futurists. I mean,
yes.
We're all looking at the future. So what any advice to be given to look at yourself and to understand how you perceive the future?
So this goes back to the metaphor part. So I have many groups I work with, and I say, what's your metaphor of yourself? So if right now you feel panic, that's the litany part. I feel panic. System, world is changing, I can't handle it. Worldview, out of control. Metaphor, headless chicken, right? Then I say, okay, that's fantastic. Now, where do you want to be? So you want to transform headless chicken to maybe wise owl. Or maybe you want to be fast cheetah. So you think about what's a better story I can tell about myself that helps me transform. So it's wise out, then the worldview is calm, looking for change, understands many views. System is now you're learning spiritual skills, social skills, technology skills, economic skills, you're widening. Your new data or litany is someone who can live in many worlds, thrive and survive in multiple futures. So there's the inner work part of it. So this is CLA of the self as well as CLA of the external world.
So you don't have to go to take psychotherapy. You can just change it.
Yeah, I mean, people who want to do psychotherapy, they can do it. We're thinking, how do I transform my narrative about the future? We're not therapists. We're just trying to figure out what's a better vision, what's a better purpose.
No, you're right. One impossible question. Where are we in 10 years?
So that's the predictive part, right? I can tell you the world I prefer in 10 years.
Okay.
Again, I like scenario 3, global health awakening, real global convergence on climate change, switch to renewables, going from a meat culture to more of a veggie culture, going from national governments to real global agreements on refugees, on pandemics, on global economy. So those are some of the 3-4 shifts I'd love to see. And I think those will help the world as a whole. So it's going from the castle to Gaia. So Gaia as a metaphor for the planet is you can't really push anything out. It includes everything. This is living the new future.
Yeah. I think this is a very nice and optimistic closing of our talk, Sohail. So I'd like to thank you, and I wish you good health for you and everyone around you. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Menno. You too. Hope the same for you and your family and friends and community, country and planet.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Bye.